Yeah. Hello, good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? Trust you're all doing very well. May 29th just passed, so I don't know if I should say happy, Democracy Day, but like all things, it's the new administration. We Everything has been changing. So, they've changed the Democracy Day again to June 12th, this the same way they changed the national anthem. And it just seems pretty interesting that all this is happening all at this time. Tonight, initially, we are going to be talking about some of the things that have happened in the course of this administration. Some of them to do with how this administration came into play, how they won the elections, and what has been happening since the 1 year that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has been in office. A lot of people have had quite a bit to complain about. For some, it is a case of it's a process. Now, is it really a process? Do we really know, or can we really say for a fact that the things that are being done in the interest of Nigerians, especially the people who are the staunch supporters of the APC? So tonight I'm going to be having a conversation with a very good friend of mine, an old friend. He's the country manager of Color Media, which is an international marketing company, and is also a public analyst. He always has quite a few things, going up, in his head when he's talking about Nigeria, because he seems to be a deeply patriotic Nigerian. Whether he believes in Projects Nigeria or not, I can't tell you that for a fact, but I do know that he does believe strongly in Project Nigeria. His name is Richard, and I'm going to be bringing Richard on right about now. Hello, Richard. How are you doing today?
Hello, good evening.
Should I say Democracy Day to you or not?
Yeah, I don't really know. Basically, I don't see anybody being excited. I think it's just one too many holidays. May 29th, June 12th, October 1st. It's very confusing to the masses. It's just really like another public holiday. But there's very little to, at this stage. The first couple of years, it was something to celebrate. We got out of military rule. Then every single one, it was 1 year less military rule. And after the 10th and the 15th and the 20th, I think we got the idea that maybe the military wasn't coming back anymore. Then coups started happening in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Gabon, and the fear came back again. And we were started appreciating what we had. Then, unfortunately, um, the democracy hasn't really given us dividends in terms of generally this administration. It's past 1 year. So I don't see anybody celebrating right now.
Well, so from the very beginning, it seems that quite a few things were off in terms of the inaugural speech when President Tinubu first took office. And that inaugural speech was what seems to have shaken the foundations of Nigeria today. But there was something that caught my attention with that inaugural speech. Now, don't get me wrong, there are several things that I follow up to that. But what actually caught my attention at that inaugural speech, I think the first thing I need to do is let's listen to that part where he spoke about the subsidy, because that seems to be the most contentious of all the issues that talking about when it comes to Nigeria, the president, his policies. So let's listen to that particular clip first, and then we'll come back to.
Unfortunately, the budget that I've before I assume office and what I've had is that no provision is there for fuel. the first subsidy is gone.
So, Richard, there were two things that happened simultaneously there. The first was that his speech basically meant that he did not, or he was not the one that removed the fuel subsidy. That had already been removed before he assumed office. The second was that some people were actually clapping. Was it just reactionary, or was it a case of they truly understood the impact of fuel subsidy being removed?
I was like both. Let me take one at a time. Wow, I just took flight. First of all, you can hear me, right?
Dividends of democracy. Go ahead, I'm listening.
No, I mean it's just Nigeria. Let me start from the beginning. First and foremost, yeah, there was no provision for subsidy. Two, subsidy had to go. I think virtually everybody understood that aspect. And then 3 years for the people clapping, people will clap for anything. I mean, if he said we have to kill 1 million Nigerians, people will clap. So the clapping thing doesn't really mean anything. So, but as for the subsidy had to go. Everybody knew that. Wale Edun just got off an interview with Channels TV, and he said the subsidy removal is an ongoing project, which it should have been. After that video clip you played, the president himself said that his finance minister told him that the subsidy should be removed in phases. I mean, that's what anybody would have told you. Do you understand? Yeah. The whole shock to the system stuff doesn't work, or hardly works, let me say that. And it's hardly a good idea. So now we are back to where we started. Everybody knows subsidy is still being paid. If you look at the cost of a barrel of oil, cost of a refined liter of petrol, the landing costs, and the cost of stills at the filling station, you put all those figures together, you know quite well that subsidy is being paid. In fact, a huge amount of money, and it goes up and down depending on the exchange rate. So no subsidy was removed. Don't forget, during the time of Buhari, subsidy was removed about 4 times, I think minimum. You understand? Yeah. So it's not as easy as it looks. It's something very complex, something that is intertwined into the fabric of society and the economy. So I would have expected that the minute he knew he was president, he should have set up a special committee to sit down and look into that aspect. And I think from February to May 29 was almost like 4 months or 3 months. They should have come up with a plan. And that plan was what they should have been implementing from May 29th and not just a declaration.
So for quite a few people, I mean, I personally, I was in Nigeria barely 3 weeks ago, for a couple of days. And I actually went to the market myself. And I saw, excuse me, a bottle of cashew nuts, for instance, was going for about 4,000 something naira. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was about 4,000 naira. And I was taken aback because, yes, I know there's a ripple effect in terms of if the price of petrol is high, the cost of transportation will be high. So that means the cost of moving goods from point A to point B is going to be equally high. But that was really high. So if they are, excuse me again, if they are actually still subsidy, why is the cost of the petrol still high?
Yeah, because there's a limit to which you can put the huge burden, remove it totally. I mean, when we say subsidy, there's always, if the landing cost is 700 and you're selling it at 69, you're paying subsidy. If you're selling it at 6, you're paying subsidy. If you're selling it at 100, you're paying subsidy. One way or the other, you're subsidizing it. You're taking money from point A to point B to reduce the cost of the petrol. Anyway, sorry, I have to apologize. I don't know why they haven't put on the gen yet. Maybe there's a problem with the generator. It had a problem this morning, but they worked.
I think it's also symbolical because it is a sign of the times that
Yeah, I mean, it's not
that you are in Nigeria.
I mean, we always have power issues. It's just
since I was a child I've been hearing of NEPA.
That brings us back to one of the conversations we'll have further down on the road, which is why those simple, basic things are so hard for us to do. And that's a question we need to ask ourselves collectively. Back to the inflation rate. Yeah, the inflation is ridiculous. Officially, 40%. And you can imagine what it will be like unofficially. It's probably twice that. It's madness. I mean, they claim to this epidemic that is destroying tomato plants because just one tomato like this is 100 naira. So if you buy 1,000 tomatoes, you get maximum 10 pieces. If you buy 500 naira worth of tomatoes, you get maximum 5. So you can imagine what that is. Inflation is terrible. I really don't know how people are surviving. It's terrible. It's not bad. It's terrible.
So, I mean,
but there are no other factors other than subsidy.
Yeah, and so like the electricity that you're just talking about now, for instance, when I was in Nigeria for those couple of days, so then I was in Nigeria for about 8-9 days. That 8-9 days, I don't think that collectively that there were some hours of power from the national grid. So people don't have access to electricity. The minimum wage buys next to nothing. And the inflation is in that. You made mention of something, or you referred to something, a few seconds ago where you said you don't know how people are surviving. That is one primary question that I would like to ask. How do people survive under such circumstances where everything seems to be beyond their reach?
I have no idea at all.
And then you now see the Nigerian Labour Congress actually coming up and saying that they want to go on strike because they need federal government to accept their demands for a minimum wage of 496,000 naira.
Well, I'm not going to sit down and say what should be the minimum wage. I mean, I'm not going to have that conversation because the government should have an honest conversation. And what I mean by an honest conversation is you can't have senators, House of Reps having that ridiculous budget that they have, almost, I don't know what percentage more than what it was last year. I don't have the exact figures and I don't want to exaggerate. And then having that extra budget for car park and renovation and cars and this and that. You can't have all that and then come back and then the major issue here we are having is trust. Yeah, thank God. The major issue we are having here in government is two things: trust and sacrifice. People are not seeing enough trust in the process of making sacrifices, and you're not seeing any sacrifices on the part of the government. Almost none at all. Let's be very, very honest. From the convoys to the delegates that went to Dubai, to the amount of ministers that we have. There is virtually no aspect you look at and you see that the government is making any form of sacrifice at all. No. I stand to be corrected. I even asked the most avid government supporter, I asked him, can you please educate us about the sacrifices this government has made? I couldn't think of any.
You know, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, that the National Assembly will have a budget that's almost one-third the entire budget of the country. I've seen local government chairmen, having convoys, having security detail. I've seen governors having large convoys, with the large retinue of aides and then the security details as well. And I've always asked myself, how have we come to this point where you will see so many people in government or in either in elected positions or in appointed positions depleting so many resources in order to oppress other people? Because basically that is what it is. I don't see the sense in it. If you are going for a trip from Lagos to Ibadan, for instance, and you fill the tank of your car, depending on what your itinerary is like in Ibadan, you probably might just have to fill up a little bit for the car to bring you back to Lagos in 24 hours. But that one car, being an SUV, having such a large tank, means that they are spending roughly what, 60,000-70,000 naira per car to fill up the car. And then you now are doing like 10 vehicles. It's about 60,000 naira. Then you're talking about 600,000 naira on just fueling those cars. Then you now talk of the cost of each one of those aides and the security details getting a stipend. I don't know if it's extra code that they collect as well for going from Lagos to Ibadan. But you see them collecting, only God knows how much. I have no idea how much they pay them. Even if they pay them 20,000 naira, and then you are moving with like 20 people. That means for a 12-hour trip between Lagos and Ibadan, you are spending an average of 1 million to 1.2 million naira. On average. Now, how can any government justify that level of expenditure and then expect people to sit back and not ask questions? But unfortunately, it seems like Nigerians don't ask the right questions. This is something that we have, discussed over and over and over and over again. If you pick 10 thieves and you put them together into a group and you tell them, you decide that, okay, you want to pick a leader out of the 10 thieves, how is it possible for you to do that? These are simple questions that need to be asked. Now, I saw something about the inflation and all that today. I've been looking for that particular image. I can't seem to find it. I was actually going to put it up on the screen and try to make a comparison between how much the average income of the Nigerian is. Somebody that is probably on, say, level 12 in the civil service, and how that person is able to pay children's schools, pay their rent if they don't own their own homes, and then pay all those bills. You have neighbors that would rather have light on in their homes and then try to manage the food that they're going to eat, because if they don't have electricity, their children can't read. And while they're trying to manage that, NEPA comes up. Sorry, I'm used to calling every one of those electricity providers in Nigeria NEPA. They come up and they now start talking of band A and band B and band C. And it is a case of they snuck behind and increased electricity tariffs. Now, the telcos are about to increase their floor rates as well. So meaning that the cost of making a phone call, the cost of buying data on your phone is going to go up as well. How are people supposed to navigate all these challenges without having a high crime rate in the country? There are so many young people who are on drugs. It seems to be an epidemic in Nigeria right now, where you see a lot of young people on drugs. Several NGOs have come up and they've been screaming to high heavens and talking about this drug, epidemic that you have. Some people are pointing fingers and saying it's in the north. Some are saying it's in the east. Some are saying it's in the west. Yeah, you all now have civilians, Nigerians, as in citizens of Nigeria, attacking law enforcement in Nigeria, killing law enforcement officers, killing 7 military officers in their communities. Is it a case of the government does not expect this type of things to happen if you have this level of squeeze on the people?
There's so many things to pick up. This. The first thing is, I have no idea how people are coping, no idea at all. And it should be a cause of worry for everyone and anyone who is sane. As much as we like to believe that Nigerians can take anything and we're resilient people and we don't have a breaking point and you can push us to the wall and we'll enter the wall, nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. You understand? And everybody should be worried. Any sane person, no matter where you are or how much you earn, as long as you are in this country, you should be worried because one way or the other, you're going to have people that you care about somewhere where they're not supposed to be when this thing happens. As for the government, when it comes to this waste, I'll blame both parties. I'll blame the citizens and I'll blame the government because the little I know about life is people go as far with you as you let them. And I think naturally we let our government get away with a lot. The media has done its best, and there was a time they did an expose that almost every government house, apart from a handful, spends more on itself than they generate from their internal revenue in a year. I mean, you have government houses that they are spending more money than healthcare, than education. It's ridiculous. So all this convoy and extra code, and I mean, we saw it with the Dubai trip and all that. It's a reflection of us as a people. We are naturally a wasteful people, naturally a loud people, and we don't do things in small measures. And we give this these excuses for our government. And it's something I always say. I would say culture trumps strategy any day of the week. And unfortunately, we have a culture of waste, and we have a culture of loudness, and we have a culture of rulership. And our leaders are just reflecting us in that aspect. I'm not saying that they shouldn't set examples or leadership shouldn't set examples. I'm saying we let them get away with that. Why should they feel so comfortable riding with this amount of convoys in the midst of poverty? Is because this is what I know about life, right? From my study of life, 2 places I know where the government fears the people is Asia, both in the Arab world. Asia. The governments are very, very, forget even the Arab world where you have dictatorship. I mean, they make sure you get good schooling, good water, good healthcare, good power, good accommodation, good everything. The only thing they don't share with you is power, but your life is well taken care of. I mean, you can go to any Arab country and you see the standard of living. Apart from maybe Yemen, every Arab country has quality of life. That's there. Because they don't want their people to revolt. And then the same fear they have also in Asia. I can't speak too much about South America. And of course, we know Europe has already gone through its own phase with the Magna Carta and all that, and the Dark Ages. Africa is one place where our leaders don't fear us. Leaders should fear their people. It's just common logic. You are few, they are more. So you should be scared about what the more are going to do. And your armies and your guns can't really save you. The only thing that should be able to save you from your people is good governance. And surprisingly, for the past 60 years of independence, very few African countries have gotten that. And the leaders keep doing what they want to do. And it just tells you that either the people have an elastic point or they don't see a connection between leadership and their quality of life. They've not been able to make that connection. That leads us to elections and choices and participation and democracy. That understanding is not there. If not, somebody will not come and give you 5 naira, 5,000 or 1 indomie and you sell your vote. There has to be a part of your brain telling you that when this guy gets into office, he's going to do worse things and he's not going to do anything for you because he believes he has given you 5,000. No matter how poor or hungry you are, the minute you get yourself involved in that transaction, you've just sold your life for 4 years. You should know that. You understand? But people make excuses for the poor. I mean, Socrates had a problem with democracy. And his major problem with democracy was that the poor would always be manipulated, either by fine speeches or fine wine and bread. And we're seeing that in Africa. People are not educated and people are not enlightened enough. But I don't even believe in the educated part because even in the last election, I encountered a lot of educated people I went primary and secondary school with, and their utterances it didn't reflect their level of education. What I've come to understand is David Hundeyi wrote some pieces today talking about democracy and Africans, and we've not helped ourselves. That's putting it in a small, short way. And let me just close on that. We've not helped ourselves.
So that when what you just said now brings me to the elephant in the room, which is the issue of how the last elections played out. So the last election, parties, the 3 major parties, at a point seems more like regional.
Sorry,
parties.
1 minute. I need to shut it down.
So it looks more like regional parties. And for most people who observed...
Yeah. What was the question?
Yes, I said that the last elections, 3 major parties, or should I say the 3 leading parties during the elections, they came out more looking like regional parties. Even though the election results didn't exactly reflect that, except in some certain cases. Now, was it more or less a case of people voting along the lines of sentiments? Yes, we're all sentimental. Human beings will always be human beings. Logic plays a very little role in what we do. We are more emotional than any other thing. So, but do you think that those election figures reflected more of sentiments than any other thing?
I don't think there are regional parties in any way. I won't call them regional parties. What I do know is that some people wanted to cast them as regional parties to muddle the waters. You understand? And I saw that from a lot of my friends. I saw that in a lot of WhatsApp group. It was a coordinated effort. It was an election strategy. I don't think anybody on earth can call PDP a regional party, no matter how much it has shrunk. PDP has always been a Pan-African Nigerian party. It's reflected that in its leadership, in its choices, and everything. Now, as for the Labour Party, yeah, one thing we can never take away from elections in Africa is that elections will always have their, election party leaders will always have their strongholds. So if you are not strong in your base, then why should anybody vote for you? If the people from where you come from don't want you, don't see you, then why should anybody else want you? So that's really how it's an African thing. We've not gotten past that stage. Maybe other countries in the world have that same base thing, but here, I think the whole idea of it being tribal was an election strategy. Because I saw
we saw
it.
we saw quite a lot of personalized attacks. We saw a lot of, should I say, regional attacks as well, where people of certain regions were attacking people of certain regions verbally and all of that.
Yeah, and we had that conversation before, Habib, and it was manufactured. If you check most of all those people, they were basically just manufactured online presence. You get? I'm not saying those people didn't exist, but we've had this conversation. It was an election strategy. You understand? And even online, most of all, if you go and look at those accounts, they had 17 followers, maximum 100 followers. Bulk of them were formed within 1 year. We even saw that in America. We saw that in Europe. It's an election strategy where you use social media to model the waters. The main question should never, ever, for any logical thinking person, should be tried, should have been, has your life improved in the past 8 years? A simple question. Anything other than that question is a distraction. Everything else was done to distract you from that. Just like what people said about the national anthem, the new national, everybody, some people, let me say, a lot of people, or some people, or most people, whichever way you want to quantify it, said it was a means of distraction from quantifying the 1 year, because after that thing happened, people stopped the conversation in how has our lives improved or changed in the past 1 year, which is the one and only most important question anybody should be asking after 1 year of governance, even in a military rule, even in a democracy, even in a dictatorship. Because when a dictator comes to power or military rule, they tell you this and things are wrong and we're going to make it right. No, apart from Pol Pot, I can't think of any ruler that ever got to power and said, I'm going to make your life difficult. Everybody says they're going to make your life better. So the only question that should have mattered is, has our life gotten better in the past 1 year? Simple. It's the same thing with the election. Anything other than that question was an election strategy distraction.
Wow. So, this is an amazing revelation because...
no, it's not a revelation. We've had this conversation before. It's not a revelation. Well, I have tabled it down to you. I have shown you evidence. I have done my research. I have looked at it in and out. It's not a revelation. We've had this conversation before. Except a revelation to your fans or your audience, maybe. But not between me and you.
Well, to most people watching this, trust me, I was just speaking for them by saying that this is a revelation, because for a lot of people, it's of the opinion that Nigeria is on the brink of separation, and some of the regions going their separate ways and all of that. There's a lot of political speak around that issue.
Yeah, that's another distraction. The whole regional government distraction. You see, one thing you have to know about political strategy is that sometimes you don't want people looking left. You want them looking right. So
Right.
you do a sleight of arm. The whole regional government conversation was another distraction strategy. There was no
So
substance
it's
in it
just
at all. What?
so it's just to take away from what the current challenges are within the country.
Yeah,
Basically.
because they might be working on the next one right now as we speak. But those things don't work. You understand? I was just thinking about it before this program. It shows a weakness of a mind where you focus more on the shadow than the substance. You understand? Except you are just trying to buy yourself time. You tell yourself, okay, there was no way we could have gotten things right in 1 year. Let's not heat up the policy and put too much attention on us. Let's distract people, and by the second year, we'll have something to show. It's just like when you didn't submit your homework, or your presentation wasn't ready on time, or you didn't finish an assignment on time. You try and find a distraction to buy yourself time. That's all these things are, distractions to buy time. I hope. When I say you buy time, is that it's not just a means to an end. There's actually some people somewhere cooking something palatable for the people to eat. It's just like when you have guests and food is running late. So you now entertain the guests so they don't start growling in their tummy while the food is being prepared. I hope something is being prepared.
Well, I've always had, a critical, or should I say, an analytical look at, what they call democracy, whereby a mass of people are told to pick the smartest talker to be able to lead them, because usually people are swayed by what they hear. And in such situations, people usually end being human, following their emotions, and talking, and picking the person that aligns more with the thoughts that they have in their heads. Now, when it comes to the issue of quote unquote tribe, I think that tribe is a derogatory term. I never use it. I think that it is something that was manufactured in the right, or should I say, in the nick of time, to be able to give a derogatory connotation to African nations within, we have nations within nations in Africa. But I had an interesting conversation with somebody a couple of days ago where, we're just reminiscing about growing up in Lagos and some of the things that we used to hear back then. And one of them was the issue of you speaking in vernacular. And for the first time, I actually decided to actually check the dictionary meaning of the word vernacular. And basically, it meant that the people of an area or a community who are speaking in their native tongue. All right. But you and I are speaking English. If we are in England and we are speaking English, nobody says that you are speaking in vernacular. Now, the point I'm trying to make is we accept a lot of things that have been thrown our way pre-colonial times and post-colonial times. But we ourselves have refused to redefine ourselves as a people, either politically, socially, or economically. By now, 60 years down the line, we should at least have been able to work out something that works for us in our own unique environment. But it seems that we keep running around in circles. Or maybe we have come up with something that works uniquely for us as a people and it's just not working, or it is working exactly how some people want it to work, which is the issue of the high level of corruption and all of that. There's corruption everywhere else in the world. But for most places, the corruption is covered. But in Nigeria, I won't speak for any other African country or any other country that I know has a high level of corruption. But for Nigeria, it seems as if the corruption is stuck in your face. They want you to actually see it. And people do not speak up about it because of their sense or their leanings. Their alignments, should I say their mental alignments, just seem to be tailored towards supporting somebody, doing something to them, that ought not to be done. Some will say it's called the Stockholm syndrome, whereby the kidnapped falls in love with the kidnapper or starts to feel some emotional attachment to the kidnapper, that kind of thing. Nigerians are some of the most brilliant people when they step outside Nigeria. But within Nigeria, we just don't seem to be able to think. And it is very confusing. Very, very confusing. I look at it every other day and I ask myself, why is that, the situation? You have a large number of Nigerians in diaspora who work very hard because you don't have a choice but to work hard when you are here. But they still send money home. The remittances from the diaspora is more than how much Nigeria earns from oil. Why send that money back if they have lost hope in Nigeria? So it's time for us to start to think.
Yeah, my view
It's time
about
for us to
this.
start to ask questions.
My view about it is that it's clear. Let me clarify some things. We need to get past this issue of Nigerians do well outside, but we're not doing here. It's what you do at home that matters. If I don't use the toilet, after I use the toilet, I don't wash my hands in my house. But I come to your house and I use the toilet and I wash my hands. And that's not me. We need to understand that aspect of ourselves and stop hyping ourselves and tell ourselves the truth. That's not you. What you are is what you do naturally, not what you do when you get to somewhere where it already has an existing system that you're adapting yourself to. I mean, I wrote it. Yeah, I gave it to you and I said, we need to tell ourselves the truth. I mean, we have lecturers who are so proud. I mean, these are lecturers that have 4 or 5 degrees from abroad. So proud to come here and tell you that A is not for you. But when they were schooling and getting their 4 or 5 degrees abroad, is that what they were told? No, but that's who they are. That's who we are. We have lecturers who get public appointments and start riding around in convoys and behave no different from a semi-literate local government chairman or motor park landlord. No difference, apart from the diplomas on the wall. That's who we really are. So all this, we go abroad, we win this, we do that, it doesn't impress me. So what you do at home, that's you. I mean, we've seen enough people. We went to school with enough people who were one way in school and another way at home. And that's what we are good at. But till we bring that at home, we've not done anything. Brazil is a great footballing nation because they have a great league. Today I was just worrying about, or was it yesterday, about why can't we just have a half-decent league? Why is it so hard? Football, just go and watch a match. Pay 100 naira or 500 naira, watch a match. Cheer your team and go home like normal people. Why is it so hard? We can't do that. And then we take great pride because we have Flying Eagles, Green Eagles playing in league second tier or first tier. I get a headache when I think about it, that we don't realize there's a problem. Argentina is a great footballing nation because they have a great league. When the Argentinian or the South American champion is playing the European champion, you don't really know who is going to win.
Yeah.
When I'm talking even the club competition, that's the world club competition, and then when they are doing the forgotten Federation Cup winners, you can't really tell. That is when you have a footballing culture. Do you understand? We are only just now developing a local cinema. Do you get? Now it's something. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's something. You can wake up. I was just checking, there are like 5 Nigerian movies in the cinema. In fact, it's almost 50-50 most of the time. That's you now have something. That's when you can claim you have a cinema. It's not about Genevieve going and winning an Oscar. That is not success. We are the only set of people I know that consider that success. So we are where we are because that is where we choose to be. We allow ourselves to be distracted. Whether you want to call it tribe or not, everybody knows what you're talking about. You can call it ethnicity, you can call it nationality, you can call it race, you can call it anything. But people know what you're talking about. And I said something. For any normal person, there should have been only one question. Has your life gotten better in the past 8 years? Every other question is a distraction. If you don't get that, then you deserve what is happening to you right now. It's that simple, because that should have been the only conversation. And I don't blame it on illiteracy. I don't blame it on lack of exposure. That is why, even despite what Socrates says, which is of course factual, I'm a full supporter of democracy. And as much as people come and speak, yeah, your leader should be eloquent. Very few leaders were not eloquent. I mean, 80% of leaders were eloquent. It's one of the prerequisites. You have to convince people and bring them into your idea and vision. But they also had a vision. That vision part is where we get lost in translation. Leadership is not about convoys. It's not about contracts. Is my life getting better? It's a simple question. But anything that allows you to be distracted, the problem is you. And that's why Africa is the way it is, because it's very easy to distract us. And our politicians will continue to distract us since they found out how easy it is. It's just that simple.
Now, South Africa had, their elections, and the election results came out today. And when those election results came out, I was pretty taken aback over the fact that Jacob Zuma's political party, the MK, as they are called, which was recently formed, took a huge chunk out of the ANC, which has been the most dominant political party in South Africa since the end of apartheid. The ANC took the lead in the elections, followed by the Democratic Alliance, and then you now had the MK. What was really shocking to me about the MK was the MK is a much newer party than Julius Malema's EFF. And I tried to understand why that will happen. And I took a deeper and closer look, and I realized that most of the votes for MK actually came out from KwaZulu-Natal, which is the stronghold of Jacob Zuma. Meaning that most of the people that voted for him out of pure sentiments because he was from KwaZulu-Natal. That's his his political stronghold. This is something that we keep seeing over and over and over in Africa. We don't have politicians who talk or campaign based on issues. There's always something to turn the screws of people sentimentally to get them to vote for them. Nigeria, with all the advancements that Nigerians say they have, Nigerians dominate Africa when it comes to music, when it comes to politics, when it comes to economics. So they claim. But we see that a lot of those votes are also along those sentimental lines. What type of education needs to be put in place to be able to change this dynamic that we have? Have any suggestions around that?
Yeah, I actually thought about it before you called. And I wrote a piece, a short essay. I didn't share it to you. I wish I had. Maybe you would have spoken about it on the show. I didn't share it to anyone. I just wrote it and kept it because I wanted to reminisce about it. It was exactly about this Jacob Zuma stuff. And let me just give you the basic thing I said was I read an article a couple of years ago about the destruction of South Africa by Jacob Zuma. And it was about 26 pages, full in-depth article, end to end. I got to the 14th page. I started crying.
That's a book. That's a whole book.
It was a news piece, all this full information, like something like what Rolling Stone just did on P. Diddy, an in-depth dive. I can't remember the magazine, Modern New Nation or something, or The African or something. I can't remember. It was years ago. I think I got to the 14th page and I started crying and I just threw it away. I couldn't look at it. It was a man actually just, we have a saying among our friends and we say, don't ascribe to malice what you can ascribe to stupidity. 2 days ago, I said to myself that if Satan had come from hell to destroy South Africa, he would have only done it a bit faster than Jacob Zuma did. And
wow,
the question I wrote in my short essay that I didn't share to you was, what was in Jacob Zuma's manifesto, party manifesto? What did he promise them? Don't forget, this is not new. This is not a guy we don't know. He had 10 years of work, of body of work for you to look at, to examine, and your life got worse in every aspect, every index. Everything was ruined. Power, railroads, education, security, mining, ports, every aspect was ruined. It was like the hand of the devil. Like I said, the devil would probably only have done it faster. Maybe Jacob Zuma would have done it faster. I don't know. It's a competition between both of them. It was that bad. So what was this guy promising you? What was he offering you? What did he tell you? And he's 82, by the way. So he has one foot in the other world already. And then you are how old? 16, 18, 36. And you've seen 10 years of your life ruined by this guy. And this guy doesn't have one redeeming point, not one. Everything in that 10 years was all about him and his family. It's there. And that is why I don't pity the average African, because when you deep, he's really to blame for his problems. Right from the slave trade. The distance they had to travel, but they just couldn't find any set of people on earth who were ready to sell their brothers and sisters for mirrors and beads. That mentality is still there today. You see a full walking human being. I mean, I watched this movie, Amazing Grace, and this guy sold his girlfriend. I don't know if it was asleep from a tree. It was shocking. I can't think I was in the cinema. And this guy sold his girlfriend, not for a bottle of gin, but for a sip. Just to sip gin.
For a sip of gin.
Yeah, a sip, So, yeah, people will say, oh, Esau sold his birthright. And yeah, but I think the rest of the world has learned from that. We haven't. And the proof is in their level of development. I've been to South Africa. And everybody knows who has been there, knows less Germany or Switzerland. Almost no European country has that level of infrastructure. And look at what they did to it. And look at who you're bringing back. It's very hard to feel any level of pity for the African in how he has played his cards, how he has dealt with himself. Even in a democracy, free and fair elections, the only person I hear complaining, surprisingly, by the way, so far is Jacob Zuma. I don't know what he was expecting, but we'll find out. But everybody else seems to believe that the election was free and fair. So for the South Africans, they'll, like everybody else on earth, they'll deal with the consequences of their actions. It's that simple. That's how life works. We have an unfortunate habit of blaming others for our failures, either
Oh
colonial
yeah.
rule or slave trade or the people in the village or someone else. So when you live that kind of life and you don't take responsibility for your actions, you are prone to make poor decisions. It's just a fact of life. So the South Africans will live with what they've done. It's that simple. Just like we are living what we did.
The consequences. So at the
Yeah.
end of at the end of it all, it's a case of history keeps on repeating itself. Things are being done in the same way over and over and over and over again. We have heard, great quotes from different parts of the world, but we never hear any original quotes from any African leaders of any kind. Yet the level of followership just keeps, beating everybody's imagination. Well, not everybody, for the people who actually take a back seats and then watch. They get blown away by those facts that nothing original comes out from them. None of them, in most cases, that is, there are always exceptions to the rule. Most of them cannot come up with any original ideas. In the world that we live in today, where technology seems to be taking the lead in practically everything that we do, I mean, we are seated here now, here in one part of the world, one part of the world, and it's human beings that created this technology that we are using. Africans are quick to adapt to technology, pick it up and start using it, but we're never able to rebuild on it, even if we can build it initially. So the problems that we have basically are fundamental, they are foundational, and things need something to give, because we keep hearing that Africa is the future, Africa is the future. So Africa
Who
is the
says
future.
future of what?
Af- uh, Africa is the future partly because it's easy
Of
pickings in
what?
Africa, not easy pickings in Africa, not
What do you
necessarily
say?
a case of Nigeria. I said probably because it is easy pickings. That is why it is the future, not necessarily because Africa is going to contribute anything. It's in of itself. Not like Africans are going to be producing anything, but a case of other people will come and they take advantage of what exists in
Yeah,
Africa,
that makes sense.
so that's why they keep talking about Arab in the future, not that Africans are going to dominate the future or Africans are going to create a new world order of a kind. So until we start looking at things objectively, making a conscious effort to deal with our challenges uniquely, meaning that for each and every community that we find ourselves, we look at our own unique challenges and we try to find our own unique solutions. Develop empathy for each other, and then start to unlearn the things that you have learned so that you can learn new things. We are never going to move forward. That's a no-brainer. It's not rocket science. So I'm going to thank Rich, for taking out the time to join us tonight. I'm not going to stress Richard out by going over and over and trying to twist the questions, in different ways. Because it's the same. The problems are the same thing. It's the same thing that has been talked about since 1964, and the only keep doing speaking English around it. We all know what the challenges are. Do we know what the solutions are? I'm sure quite a few people know, but the people that do have an idea of what the solutions can be and are truly willing to do something about it, they never seem to be able to get into positions where they can. The late Gani Fahimi was a typical example. Gani Fahimi decided to run for president in Nigeria, and he had less votes than the number of people that used to ask him for help in 2 weeks. For the course of the the course of the election, and I've always found that to be truly amazing. So for us as a people, Nigerians, both at home and abroad, if you're willing to contribute to things changing in Nigeria, I don't think it is about sending money, and I don't think it is about attacking each other. I think it's about having meaningful conversations. And I hope someday some people would leave money aside for a minute and try to truly do something positive in trying to develop, Nigeria. Because wherever you're gonna go, trust me, Nigeria is still going to be somewhere at the back of your heart. You'll always be a Nigerian, regardless of how many number of foreign passports that you own. Now, I'd like to thank you all, for taking out the time to join us tonight. If you have not seen the interview, the exclusive interview with the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, I would, beseech you to please watch and all that. I'll just play a short clip of that. Then the link to the video will be in the description, and then you can watch, please, whatever you do, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, because we discovered that so many people actually, take their time to sit down and actually watch the program on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever, but they usually forget to subscribe. So we'd like to appeal to you to please subscribe, so that, that will keep encouraging us to keep doing what we're doing. And we hope that you do enjoy the program. Thank you very much. Watch this short clip.
Officer men of the armed forces are people who have voluntarily decided that they were going to work for the interests of Nigeria. They put their lives on the line all the time. And what you would expect from the Nigerian public in general is a lot of respect, empathy, and cooperation. Recently, there was an issue in Okwama, and it shocked a lot of people. Yeah. What happened there? Military personnel, 4 of them senior officers. What really happened there?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, and like you said, members of the armed forces have given their lives for the country. We stand there so that people go to sleep, people go to work, people go to play, and enjoy their lives in their own country. But unfortunately, we have the good, the bad, and ugly in the country. And he was not only shot in cold blood. His bowels were opened, the head was cut off, his hands were cut off.
Also decapitated?
Yes. His organs were removed. It was so shocking that such a thing could happen to military men that were there on a peaceful mission.
Thank you all. You have a great night. Richard, thank you so much for taking out the time to join us.
Always.